Buying a car does something to people. The demands get bigger, the logic gets stranger, and sooner or later somebody wants it in writing. This is the world of dealership complaints, told the way the people behind the desk still tell them. 1. 81 miles on the odometer, because a lot porter had driven the SUV over from the sister store in Columbus. Renee saw that number in the delivery bay and decided she'd been handed a used car at a new car price. Her fix was simple: roll it back to 0. The salesman told her twice that winding back an odometer is a federal crime, and she wanted to know who would ever find out. They dug up a different SUV with 6 miles on it. She sat down in the driver's seat, stared at the number, and asked what exactly those 6 miles had been used for. 2. The mailer said top dollar for any pre-owned vehicle, and Dale in Rolla read that as a promise made directly to him. What he towed in was a 1993 Buick that had spent 20 years in his backfield, with a sapling coming up through the floor pan and a wasp nest in the trunk. He wanted $4,000 and kept waving the mailer around like a signed contract. The used car manager offered him nothing, twice. So Dale unhooked the Buick in the middle of the front row and drove off in his truck. 2 weeks later, the state attorney general's office got his complaint. The dealership, he wrote, had taken his car and still hadn't paid for it. 3. Road dust hardens overnight and never fully comes off. That was Gary's position, and it explains 341 free car washes in 14 months at one dealership in Tempe, sometimes 2 in a single day. When they cut him back to once a week, he sued in small claims for every wash he was going to be deprived of. He showed his work. 61 years old, planning on reaching 108 like his grandmother. 47 years at 2 washes a week, $12 each, $58,000. The judge tossed it in under 5 minutes. By spring, the dealership had quietly ended free washes for everybody, which is how a few hundred customers lost something over one man's grandmother. 4. 3 hours after leaving on what was supposed to be a 20-minute test drive, the Ram came back with a dresser in the bed and mulch dust all down the tailgate. Terrence hopped out and handed the salesman a gas receipt for $58 before the guy could get a word in. He'd been evaluating the payload capacity under real conditions, which is more than most shoppers bother to do, so reimbursement seemed fair to him. He floated a delivery fee on top of it. The sales manager banned him from the property. His review warned other buyers that the place is hostile to working men and only lets you drive the trucks empty. 5. Call the family who bought the white Highlander, unwind the deal, and get it back on the lot by the weekend. That was the ask at a dealership in Charlotte, and Diane didn't think it was much of one. She'd been circling that exact truck for 6 weeks, sitting in it on Sundays, never once leaving a deposit. Somebody walked in on a Thursday and bought it. 4 days old is basically brand new, she said, and a deal that fresh can obviously be undone. When the sales manager refused, she called the manufacturer's customer care line and asked for the buyer's phone number so she could make a fair offer. They mailed her a brochure. 6. The engine kept shutting off at red lights, and Ronnie wanted a new one. 11 days into owning the sedan, he was standing in a service lane in Chattanooga, asking for a replacement engine under warranty, installed that week. Automatic stop-start is on nearly everything built now, and it saves a little fuel, but nobody at delivery had bothered to mention it to him. The advisor walked him out to the lot and showed him the button that turns it off. Then Ronnie found out the button forgets every single time you shut the car off. So he moved his complaint to the button, demanded that be fixed instead. And on that one narrow point, the man has a case. 7. A dealership in Fresno opened its mail one morning and found a bill from a customer. $75 a month for advertising services backdated to the day of purchase, with a late fee schedule stapled to the back. Their name was on Bernadette's plate frame, and their decal was on her trunk lid, and nobody had asked her first. They sent her a plain chrome frame. She refused it, on the grounds that an advertising agreement can't be canceled without 30 days written notice. and billed them for the notice period too. 9 invoices in, nobody has paid her a cent, which means she has now advertised for them free of charge for 2 solid years. 8. Priya went in for an oil change in Toledo and came out with a snapped antenna, courtesy of the free wash they run every car through. $61 for the part. The service advisor explained with a completely straight face that the wash is complimentary, and complimentary services aren't covered because there's no charge on it to stand behind. She asked what would happen if the wash dropped a car. He said he'd have to check on that. What they finally offered her, after 2 weeks and 3 phone calls, was a book of free car washes. 9. Deep Ocean Pearl looked incredible under the showroom lights. In Lorna's driveway in Sacramento, it looked like a storm cloud, so she came back with 2 options for them: repaint the car at no charge or pay to put that same lighting in her garage. She brought a written quote from an electrician, $2,400, so they'd know she wasn't kidding. The dealership countered with a $200 detail credit. She took it, spent $30 of it on shop lights at the hardware store, and called back a month later to report that the color still changes the second she pulls out of the garage. 10. Bev walked into the finance office with her own laptop and a portable printer, set them on the desk, and offered to do the paperwork herself. She runs a plumbing outfit outside Lubbock, and she had just been handed a documentation fee of $799. She timed the last one she signed, 11 minutes and 40 seconds, printer jam included. What she found out is that a dealership has to charge every customer the same doc fee, so waiving hers would land the store in trouble with the state. She paid it. Then she went home and added a line to her own invoices. Paperwork fee, $79, everybody, no exceptions. 11. Sideways rain in Tampa, and Dwayne insisted on taking the Mustang out with the top down to test the seals. He came back soaked, and so did the seats. Then he asked for 15% off, since the car now had water damage in its history and nobody else was going to want it. The sales manager reminded him whose idea the rain test had been. Dwayne turned up the following Saturday to ask whether the flood car had been marked down yet. 12. Hal wanted the certificate notarized. The dealership had already typed one up on letterhead, confirming that the nitrogen in his tires was genuinely nitrogen. He'd called the service desk 6 months after buying the car to report that his nitrogen had leaked out and been replaced by ordinary air. That gas had cost him $199. So they went and got the certificate notarized. Then somebody made the mistake of telling him that regular air is already about 78% nitrogen, and Hal did the math on the spot. He'd been shorted 22% on this car and the one before it, and he wanted both refunds in a single check. 13. 61 Test drives past his mailbox in a single Saturday. Roy counted them from his porch in Bakersfield with a legal pad and a golf clicker, then carried the tally to the city council with a petition attached. He wanted posted test drive hours and a mandatory route that ran the other direction. Council was not about to write a schedule for a car dealership, so they compromised and put a stop sign on his corner. Now all 61 of those cars roll to a complete stop directly in front of his living room window, sit there idling, and then accelerate away. Roy has been back twice about the stop sign. 14. The folding chair was what tipped them off that this was going to be a long day. Nadia set it up in the middle of a showroom outside Albany and sat down with a cashier's check for $4,795. That's about a tenth of what a Wrangler costs. She was 24 and she'd done her homework, or thought she had. Before coming in, she took the printed listing to a notary. A notary confirms that you are you. It does not confirm that a price is real, and 6 hours of explaining that got nobody anywhere. When they corrected the listing that afternoon, she accused them of destroying evidence and turned down $500 to drop it. 15. 4 vehicles and a cousin pulled into the service lane in Bowling Green on a Tuesday morning. This was Bobby, collecting on a handshake from the 1970s. His grandfather bought 2 trucks off that lot back then, and the story handed down in the family is that the owner promised free oil changes forever. Nothing on paper. The place has changed owners twice since. 3 weeks earlier, the general manager, who was a decent guy, had done one on the house out of respect for the story. That was the mistake. Bobby wanted it in writing now. His wife, his brother-in-law's Kia, and his grandson, who is 9. 16. 11 years of fuel points, 41,000 of them, every gallon bought at the same chain, and Angie was 600 points short of a free cooler. 14 gallons is worth about 140 of those points. That's what the dealership outside Green Bay cost her when they handed over her Kia with a full tank from the wrong station. She wanted all 14 gallons drained before she'd take the car. They declined to pour good gasoline onto the ground. So she drove 340 miles in 3 days to burn it off, most of it circling Lake Winnebago. Then she filled up where she was supposed to and mailed the $52 receipt to the sales manager for reimbursement. 17. $495 for dealer prep, which the finance manager admitted, when pressed, covers peeling the plastic off the seats and topping off the washer fluid. Curtis and Macon thought that over and asked to buy the car unprepped instead. They told him they can't sell a car that way, so he paid the fee and asked them to leave every piece of plastic exactly where it was, since he'd bought and paid for it. A porter put the door film back on by hand. Curtis drove that Malibu around for a year with plastic on the seats, telling anybody who asked that he was looking at $495 of factory protection. 18. Elliot knew the thing most buyers never find out, which is that on the manufacturer's survey, a 9 out of 10 counts as a failing grade for the store. So before he signed anything, he mentioned casually that a set of winter tires would help him remember the experience fondly. The sales manager was staring down a bad month and produced a used set worth about $1,100. Elliot gave them a 9. Then, in the comment box, he explained that he'd been offered tires to raise his score, which happens to be the one thing that triggers a factory audit. He kept the tires. 19. The Cavalier made it about 40 feet before it died, still inside the lot, in full view of the office. Rodney had signed an as-is buyer's order, meaning no warranty of any kind, and he'd initialed it twice while standing under a sign that says the same thing in 3 places. $1,800. He wanted a full refund and a rental car while they sorted it out, plus coverage under the lifetime powertrain warranty advertised on the banner over the new car showroom. They jumped it and handed him a battery, which was already more than they owed him. He reported that battery to the state as an admission of fault. 20. On a car lot, whoever's next in the rotation gets the next person through the door, no matter whose name that person says. A woman called and asked for Kelsey, then showed up on her day off. The guy who was up sold her a Sonata. Kelsey put her complaint in writing, which nobody in that building had ever done. She wanted the full commission and an apology posted in the break room. She also wanted a permanent rule that any salesperson gets phoned at home the second a customer asks for them by name. The manager split the deal, $340 aside. She quit that Friday, applied back in the fall, and spent the interview explaining what was wrong with the culture there. 21. The sedan stalled on the interstate outside Flagstaff, which is roughly what happens when you throw away 2 recall notices about a fuel pump. Wendell had thrown away both because he doesn't let strangers open his hood. His letter to the manufacturer ran 3 pages. He wanted them to buy the car back at what he paid for it 5 years ago, cover the tow, and answer for a dealership that knew the thing was unsafe and handed him the keys anyway. Customer care offered to fix it free at any dealership he liked, and he turned that down flat. The last page asked them to investigate his mail carrier, who he suspects of holding the notices. 22. The technician found a loose sensor plug, clipped it back in, cleared the code, and was done in 25 minutes. That turned out to be the problem. Marcus refused to take the truck because nobody diagnosed anything in 25 minutes, and he wanted the whole job done over again, properly, with photographs this time, and he wanted them to keep it all day. So the service manager parked it out back until closing. Marcus picked it up at 5, said he could feel the difference on the drive home, and has requested that same technician by name ever since. He always asked for the all-day job. 23. A hitch on the bumper, 2,800 miles, and both doors wrapped in the logo of his septic company. Denny brought the truck back to a dealership outside Wichita on day 3 and asked them to tear the deal up and hand back his trade. "Everybody knows you get 3 days," he said. "There is no 3-day return law on cars." What he'd printed out was the federal cooling-off rule, which covers stuff sold to you at your own house. The sales manager pointed that out. "Fine," Denny said. Since the rule was about home sales, they could come pick the truck up out of his driveway. 24. Dean called the dealership in Akron from Phoenix and asked them to cancel the service contract on a car he no longer owned. $412 was coming back to him. The catch was the form. It had to be signed in person at that store, in front of the same finance office that sold it. He offered a notary. He offered to sign at any dealership in Arizona, on video, with a witness. The answer stayed no, because that is how the store had always done it, and nobody could explain what the drive would prove. So Dean drove 1,900 miles, signed one page in under a minute, and drove home. 2 months later, the company started taking those forms by mail. 25. The tube man made the getting ready shots, the first look, and every picture of the bridal party out by the pond. 40 feet of inflatable arms waving over the tree line, because the dealership sat right across the road from that venue in Ocala. Shauna had called on Wednesday and asked them to shut it down for Saturday. The general manager said yes, which nobody expected. He killed it at 10 in the morning. So she mailed him a photographer's retouching bill for $1,100, covering everything shot before 10. Then she asked what he intended to do about the flags, the light poles, and the red trim on the building. He stopped answering. 26. For 9 Saturdays, a Corvette with a "for sale" sign in the windshield sat in the front row of a dealership in Amarillo, 60 feet from their used inventory. It belonged to Lonnie, who had counted the traffic and called it the best free advertising in Texas. On the 10th Saturday, they towed it. His complaint went to the police first, then to City Hall. He wanted 3 things: the $190 tow bill, a written apology, and a permanent space on the lot for private sellers. Anybody can pull in there, he argued, so the front row belongs to everybody. City Hall explained private property to him. He sells from the strip mall across the road now and tells people he was run off for competing. 27. Park it outside, away from the house, away from any building until the new part comes in. That's what the recall letter told Hollis, and the part was 10 weeks out. So the sedan sat in his driveway every night. His homeowners association started fining him $25 a day because the neighborhood rules said cars go in the garage overnight. He brought the letter to the dealership and asked them to either park the car on their lot or pay the fines, since it was their brand that sent it. The service manager let him use the back row, which nobody made him do. The association collected $900 anyway, because there's a form for requesting an exception and Hollis never filed one. 28. The sales manager added $2,000 to a sticker price because the customer asked him to. This was a one-price store outside Fort Wayne, no haggling, same number for everybody, printed right on the glass. And Roxanne had never in her life bought a car without grinding somebody down. She was not going to start now. So they built her a bigger number, and she went to work on it, 40 minutes across a desk, and won every dollar of it back. She paid the price that was on the glass when she walked in. 2 weeks later, her complaint reached the manufacturer's customer line. The dealership, she said, had marked her car up $2,000 and she wanted it refunded. 29. The fuel tank behind Barry's barn had a hose that didn't move, and every truck he'd owned since the 80s took fuel on the driver's side. The new one took it on the other side. So he asked the dealership in Sioux Falls to move the filler over to where it belonged and offered to pay for the work himself. Cash, no warranty, no complaints later. A body shop will do plenty of things. Cutting a new hole into a fuel system is not one of them. Barry traded that truck back in 11 days later and lost $4,000 doing it. 30. Darlene had matched the $25,000 grand prize 6 times in a row. All 6 mailers sat in a binder in sleeves, sorted by date. Every one of them paid out the same thing, a $5 gas card, because the real odds were printed on the back in gray type you would need daylight to read. She wanted the $25,000. When that went nowhere, she wanted the name and phone number of one human being who had ever won it. The dealership handed her 6 gas cards. Her binder picked up a second section for the letters they wrote back. 31. 2 weeks after trading in her Tahoe, Rosalind drove past the same lot in Knoxville. There it sat in the front row, wearing a price $6,000 higher than what they'd paid her for it. She came in wanting that difference in a check. The used car manager walked her through where the money went. Reconditioning, 4 new tires, the inspection, the warranty they put on it, and the 80 days it might sit there before anybody bought it. Rosalind followed every word. Then she asked to buy the truck back at the price she'd sold it for, and ended up buying it back at the sticker. Afterward, she called the general manager to complain that the store had made money on the same truck twice. 32. Twice a year, Otto came into a service department in Muncie and asked them to find something wrong with his car. Anything at all. He had put $3,400 into an extended service contract, and in 2 years, the Corolla had not cost him a nickel, which he took personally. His letter to the service director said he had paid for repairs he never received, so they owed him a repair or his money back. They told him he could cancel and get the unused part refunded. It came to $1,880. He signed the paperwork, walked it across the showroom, and spent all of it on a longer contract for the same Corolla. 33. 4 hours from Nebraska to a dealership outside Denver on a Sunday to buy a Silverado. In Colorado, that lot was not legally allowed to sell him one. Sunday car sales are banned there, and it was the dealers themselves who pushed for the ban. Cal found the doors locked and filled the entire voicemail box explaining what he thought of it. He wanted his gas money, a hotel night, and his Sunday back. On Monday, he filed a complaint with the state and asked the state to fine the dealership for being closed. 34. The bow went back on the hood at 9 on a Tuesday morning, and 11 employees stood around a Kia clapping for the second time. Kaylee had done the whole delivery ceremony 3 days earlier at a dealership in Reno, and her sister filmed it sideways and out of focus. So she called and asked them to run it again. Same bow, same salesman, same handoff line. The car rewashed, and the showroom cleared of other customers so nobody wandered through the shot. The store said yes, mostly to make it stop. The salesman flubbed his line twice. The finished video has 212 views. 35. The garage code was still sitting in the buttons on the mirror when Marguerite's old Yukon went home with a stranger. 3 weeks after the trade, she called the dealership in Kalamazoo and asked for the buyer's address so she could go handle it herself. They would not give it out. So she came back with a list. Send somebody to that man's house and erase it. Replace her whole garage opener system at their expense. $460. Put it in writing that the memory was clear. Those buttons take about 20 seconds to wipe, sitting in your own driveway. The store called the buyer. He did it himself while they were on the phone, and Marguerite wanted the letter anyway. 36. Trish wanted the technician to wear a body camera for the entire brake job. She had bought one, $69 with a chest clip, and brought it to the service drive in Peoria already charged. Her theory, held for years and shared with anyone standing nearby, was that shop guys take customer cars out for lunch. The manager told her he could not strap a camera to an employee. So she asked for a live feed of the bay, then for the shop's own security footage, then for a written list of everyone who would touch the car. What she got was the waiting room chair by the window over the shop floor. The brake job took 90 minutes. Trish stayed 4 hours, writing down times. 37. 7 months on a paper tag that was good for 60 days. Gus knew that, more or less, and kept meaning to call. What he did instead, after the ticket, was drive to the dealership in Mobile and demand they cover the fine, the late fee, and the court costs. Then he asked them to send somebody down to the courthouse in his place, since it was their paperwork sitting on his dash. The title clerk pulled his file. His plate had been in a drawer since April, in an envelope with his name on it. They'd called him 9 times. 38. Sandra went pale at a piece of paper, and then she got loud. She had just counted $34,000 onto the finance manager's desk, mostly hundreds, out of a gym bag. Any business that takes in more than $10,000 in cash has to report it to the government, and he was filling that form out in front of her. She wanted it shredded, unfiled, unsent, gone, plus a letter on dealership letterhead stating she was not under investigation for anything. Then she left the car sitting on the lot for 3 days out of principle before coming back for it. A month later, she called to ask, hypothetically, whether cashier's checks get reported too. 39. $1,200 to spray her house and garage for mice. That was what Roberta wanted the dealership in Bloomington to cover. The advisor had turned his monitor around and shown her a mouse nest built inside the cabin air filter of her Escape, made of insulation and a shredded napkin. She didn't argue about the $60 filter. Her point was that the Escape had sat on their lot since February, so those were their mice, and they'd ridden home in her ductwork. She wanted to know if the nest could be tested to prove where the animals came from. They put in the new filter free. She took the old one home in a bag, still looking for somebody who does that kind of testing. 40. The lease inspector found the jigsaw cuts about 4 minutes in. Fitz had put $4,000 of audio into that charger. 2 amps and a head unit and door panels opened up to fit speakers you could eat dinner off. When he handed it back, he asked to be paid for the upgrade, since the car leaving was better than the one they gave him. The inspector wrote him up $940 for the doors. Fitz wanted the speakers out, which meant cutting the panels a second time, and he wanted somebody to explain how a car gets worth less with a better stereo in it. He paid the $940. The speakers went to auction with the car. 41. Reggie's water pump went out, and the way he explained it to the dealership in Lansing, they had taken away his ability to go get his own children. He wanted the courtesy shuttle to make the 3 o'clock pickup. 2 kids, 12 miles out, on a van that ran a 5-mile radius and mostly hauled people to the diner and back. He also wanted the driver's full name and license number, so the school could put a stranger on the approved pickup list. They handed him a loaner instead, which was more than they owed him. His last letter asked the store to reimburse his neighbor for the run at the federal mileage rate plus her time. 42. Sal brought a container, a rectangular one with a snap lid. He set it on the service counter in Tucson, right beside the popcorn machine, which was cold and empty and had been for 2 weeks. He'd just paid $1,400 for a timing job, and he wanted all of it back. Not the price of the popcorn. The repair. He'd picked this dealership over the closer one because of that machine, and he also wanted to see the service records for it. The advisor bought him a bag of chips out of his own pocket. Sal put the chips in the container and left. 43. Lenora bought a used Rogue and wanted to know who'd had it before her. Name, phone number, and the reason they got rid of it. Dealerships don't hand that out, so the sales manager didn't, and she took the refusal as proof there was something in that car's past worth hiding. She demanded her money back. Then she found a dry cleaning ticket wedged under the passenger seat with a full name printed on it, looked the woman up, and called her at home. The previous owner said the Rogue was a great car. She just needed a third row for her mother. Lenora called the dealership back to complain that she'd had to do their job for them. 44. The tow truck set the Tacoma down in Ike's driveway, and that was exactly where it stayed for 9 days. He had bought it used in the rain and never once put it in gear on the lot, because it was a manual and Ike could not drive a manual. His complaint to the dealership in Roanoke was that they had sold him a vehicle he was physically unable to operate. He wanted the tow covered and somebody sent out to teach him. They actually sent a salesman on a Saturday who spent 2 hours with him in a church parking lot. The truck was back on their used lot inside a month. Ike bought an automatic from a different store, out of principle. I will admit something. Halfway through writing this, I caught myself thinking a couple of those demands were not that crazy, and that is how it starts. Nobody thinks they are the problem customer. Everybody is somebody's problem customer. So be honest with the group down in the comments. What is the pettiest thing you have ever complained about? Like it, subscribe, done.